In this full 100% free course, I will show you everything you need to successfully cold call. And it doesn't matter whether you're an SDR or you're trying to grow your own business through cold calling. And I will be giving you the exact proven methods that I have used. This goes from list building to call preparation, to objection handling, and everything else you need to know to crush it. If you're wondering why you should listen to me, here's a quick rundown. My cold calling journey started at 16 in a call center, selling Google ads to small businesses. I did hundreds of calls daily with scripts for products I barely understood. But that job taught me how a strong opener decides whether a call lives or dies in the end. Fast forward today, I've co-founded and bootstrapped a B2B SaaS to 7 figures. And dozens of top agencies and enterprises, including salespeople from Gartner and Oracle, are using our product. And everything started from cold outreach. And these days, a lot of people are saying cold calling is dead, but it basically just evolved. The average success rates hover at around 2.3% only, but businesses that are using proper system like ours are crushing it more than ever. And in this video, I will show you how this system works. Let's get something out of the way first. You can't call someone if you don't have their actual phone number. Sounds obvious, right? But 90% of people already mess up at this stage because they just build a random list of random companies and random people with not even a valid phone number. So the first step in our cold calling workflow is going to be the list building part. And before we dive into it, I want to say up front, list building can get really advanced. You can layer in buying triggers, intent data, tech stack data, and all of this has its place. But for this session, I want to keep it simple because if you don't even have the basics down, meaning building a basic list of people with the right number, the advanced stuff won't matter. Finding individual people through the LinkedIn search is by far the easiest way to get started. Because the best thing is you don't need a tool and no subscription to a lead database. All you need is LinkedIn and a clear idea who you are looking for. And what's great is that they have very interesting filters that you can use to find the people that you want to reach out to in the first place. The first thing that you have to do for that is go on linkedin.com and then basically click here on the search bar and then click on enter without typing in anything. Because we're looking for people, we're now going to click on the people button, and now we can see that we have a lot of interesting filters that we can use for the lead search. The first one that we are going to look at is the connections off. So basically seeing who our clients are connected with. The good thing is that these leads come with built-in credibility because you can reference a mutual contact to them. For example, if you're saying in your intro message then, I saw you're connected to Sarah, I just worked on a project with her on XY, this makes it way harder to ignore you. So let's just say I know one of our clients very well and I know that he has many potential new clients in his network. So we're going to go on the all filters here. We're going to then scroll down and then we're going to click here on the connections off, right? I'm going to type in that person, so we need to be connected to him, and then we can already click on show results. Now we have a list of people that this person is connected to, so we're going to click here on all filters again to narrow down our search. For example, we can now look for a specific industry, we can also look for locations, and we can also look for keywords. For example, if we want the person to have the job title product manager, we can type that here. The next powerful way to find leads is the post-based search. So this is especially interesting if you already have a specific company that you want to reach out to. This allows you to make your outreach seem more natural because we are going to look for people from that company that recently posted, so we can basically make it seem that we were scrolling LinkedIn and came along their post. For that, go again to the search bar, click here on enter, and then what we can do is click here on the post button, and then we will have all of the recent posts. Then we're going to click here on all filters again. We're going to see here that we can look for the author company, right? And in this case, we're looking for Amazon as an example. So we're going to select that and then we click on show results. We want to narrow down our search again, so we're going to click here again on all filters and we want the person to work in the product space. So we're going to click here on show results again. And to make it more recent and also more relevant, we're going to click here not on top match but on the latest. So this is going to give us the latest posts. So now we found a person that is working at Amazon and also works in the product space, and this person basically posted recently, namely 3 days ago. Now we want to find the mobile phone number of that person, and for that we're going to use a tool like Better Contact. The tool basically aggregates all of the relevant mobile phone databases and also verifies the number, so it's made sure that the correct number for that person is found. The good thing is that we can create a free account with 50 free credits, so we just have to click here on start for free and we can get started immediately and also don't need a credit card whatsoever. So once we signed up, we're going back to our LinkedIn, we're going to click on that person and we're going to copy out the LinkedIn profile URL of that person. And then we're going to go back to better contact, go here on the mobile number field, we're going to paste in the LinkedIn profile and then click on enrich my contact. Now it says that we can access the results here, so we're going to wait a bit and we will check if Better Contact has the mobile number for that specific person. So now Better Contact found the mobile phone number and now you have your first lead that is actually relevant to reach out to. Now, if you actually prefer to build lists instead of looking for prospects one by one, you actually need tools to build these lists at scale. Most people default to tools like Apollo, Lucia, or ZoomInfo, and these are great for pulling people at scale and then exporting them to a CSV file. For example, inside Apollo, you can filter for company size, revenue range, and a lot of different other filters. And this is usually enough to get started with the list building. But here's where it gets interesting, because all of these tools pull from the same large pool of mobile phone data, meaning everyone else, including your competitors, is calling the same 60% of leads. And this is why often for the prospect, this already is the 5th pitch of the week. And this is what also makes cold calling feel so hard, because most prospects from this pool already have such a large objection against you. And this is why the hidden trick, which also is going to make cold calling so much easier, to focus on the untouched leads. These are the 20 to 30% which show up in these databases like Apollo or ZoomInfo, but where they don't have a valid mobile phone for. And this allows you to reach out to people which don't have an inherent strong objection towards you, and they also are most likely not solution aware. So they know that they have a problem, but they don't know that your solution or your competitor solutions exist. So in easy words, basically prospects that are way easier to close than those that everyone else reaches out to. So let's now go to such a database tool, for example, Apollo. We've already built our list in the People tab. As you can see, we have defined the job title, the location, the employee range, and also the industry and the keywords. We're looking for project managers from Spain or Italy in the computer software industry. So now going through these people, we can do some random testing. For example, this person, we can click here on Access Mobile and see if Apollo can find a mobile phone number for that person. And apparently Apollo does not have a mobile phone number for this specific person, meaning that if you wanted to reach him, you wouldn't be able to reach that person in the first place because there is no valid mobile phone number available. And now the assumption is that for several prospects, there is no number at all. So basically, instead of enriching them with Apollo, we're going to find the leads from Apollo, but we're not going to enrich them with Apollo. And for that, again, we're going to use a waterfall enrichment tool, which aggregates all of the relevant databases, so we make sure that all of the relevant mobile phone numbers are found. And for that, we again could use a tool like Better Contact. And to export this list now, you can either select all of them here, or you can also use a tool like the Boomerang to export these leads at a cheaper rate. And before we do that, we can do a quick check if Better Contact would have found that mobile phone number. So we're going to click here on that person. We're going to copy out the LinkedIn profile, and then we're going to go to Better Contact, paste in the LinkedIn profile, and see if something can be found there. Great, so Better Contact found the mobile phone number. This means that we found our first untouched lead, which will be way easier to close than all of the other ones. And after you've exported your list from Apollo, you can just go here to Better Contact, click on File Enrichment, and then we can upload this CSV file so that we can find the mobile phone numbers and have a clean list of prospects with mobile phone numbers. Now that we have our list with the verified mobile phone numbers, we need to make sure to gather deep insights about the prospect as well as the company. The thing is, with AI and all of these other tools, coming prepared to a cold call is not a nice to have anymore, but it's a must. But the good thing with all of these tools, you can save a lot of time on an individual research of a prospect, and I will show you exactly how. We're going to use ChatGPT for that, and I also put together a tried and tested prompt, which I will also put in the description. This prompt allows me to gather all of the relevant person and company level information within seconds. And this does not only impress the prospects that I'm calling, but it also makes me more confident because I know exactly who I am talking to in the end. The only thing that you need for this prompt to work is the LinkedIn URL of the prospect. And with the export from these lead databases, we always get it, so we just need to go to our list and then copy that out. As you can see, I've already pasted in the prompt, and the only thing that you need to do now is get the LinkedIn profile URL, and then here where it says LinkedIn URL, replace it and hit on enter. As we can see now, ChatGPT gives us all of these insights regarding the person on a professional side, but also on a personal side. And this basically allows us to establish mutual points of interest during the call if needed. If you want to do this at scale, so basically not having to paste every LinkedIn profile into the prompt, you can also use tools like ChatGPT for Sheets and then basically build the prompt inside a Google Sheet and make this at scale. Now we have the list of enriched prospects, and we also have a prompt that will give us all of the information before calling that person that we need. But before we even talk about what to say on the phone, we need to see what we need to do to set ourselves up for success. Because cold calling is tough, and in the end, how you set up your environment makes all of the difference if you're going to succeed or if you're going to fail at cold calling. From my own experience and what you will hear from a lot of top salespeople is that it's the best thing to do the cold calling the first thing in the morning. And the reason behind it is because it's so hard, it allows you to build momentum and also don't dread doing it by the end of the day, for example. So you already have done the hardest task of the day and can get started after this with everything else. Another more practical tip is that you should always use proper headphones and not using, for example, your phone on the ear, because this doesn't allow you to move around freely, and it also doesn't allow you to really use your hands, because this will make a big difference also in your confidence. Another thing that always helped me is standing instead of sitting, because this always allowed me to project more energy into my own voice. Now, let's talk about timing. When should you cold call a person? And in the end, it all comes down to using common sense, because it always depends on the persona that you are prospecting to, and you should know when that person is most likely free or at their desk. But if you want more general data on this, typically the highest connect rates are between 10 to 11 a.m. and 2 to 3 p.m. But as mentioned, always keep in mind your target persona, because, for example, a restaurant owner will have different times when he or she will be best available than a SaaS executive. Now that your timing and environment are locked in, the next question is, how are you actually going to make these cold calls? Because the tool that you're using is going to make a massive difference in how many conversations you're going to have in the end. Whether you go with a manual, power, or parallel dialer, all of them have their own strengths and weaknesses, and we'll break them down right now. Let's first talk about the manual dialer. And if the people that you're calling are already further along in the sales cycle and you want to prepare better without having to use a power or a parallel dialer, the manual dialer is most likely the right one for you. And tools like Aircall, Zoho CRM, or HubSpot allow you to take it slower and also go through the profiles one by one. It also allows you to add this personal touch to each call. But as you can see here on the graphic, it's very time intensive, because you always need to take time to actually dial the number, then of course talk to the person, and then also do additional call work. For example, adding notes and all of this, and then the whole cycle repeats. But if you're saying I want to have as much volume as possible, you have the option between a parallel dialer and a power dialer. A parallel dialer calls multiple numbers at a time, usually between 2 and 10. And as soon as the first person picks up, all of the other calls are being basically canceled. This is quite advanced, and it's all about maximizing volume. And it's usually used for large markets or high output outbound campaigns. Tools like Aurum, Salesfinity, or Nooks fall into exactly this category of parallel dialers. On the other hand, a power dialer goes one call at a time, but it automates the whole process of dialing, so you don't need to do it manually. This is great if you still want efficiency, but you still want to have the control and also be able to personalize more, because you most likely will have more time and won't be that stressed. Popular examples here are FrontSpin, Phone Burner, and Outreach.io for the power dialing category. And as you can see here, the rule of thumb is that the warmer the leads and the smaller the TAM, the more it makes sense to use a power dialer. And on the other hand, the colder the leads and the bigger the TAM, the more it makes sense to use a parallel dialer. Also, a big advantage of these dialer solutions is that they have advanced analytics, so you can precisely track how your cold calls are performing. The good thing is, once you have the data, you can see where the leaks are, you can work on them very specifically, and then optimize your whole system and the output. And such a funnel, for example, looks like this. So it starts basically with the phone calls, the dials that you make. So from there on, your connection rate basically tells you how good the data is. And if no one is picking up, you've got a data problem and not a script problem. So if there's like a big jump, for example, you make 100 phone calls, but you only got 10 connects, you should check out the quality of your contact data. Once the people answer, your call effectiveness shows how strong the actual conversation with that person is. Things like, are you opening well? Are you keeping them engaged? And that's basically what moves people from talking to actually booking. And then next, you got the booked meetings, which basically show whether the pitch that you did actually landed. So if you're getting conversations but not enough booked meetings, you're not creating enough value in your ask. And finally, the held meetings, which ultimately have the business impact. Because booked meetings just aren't enough. If no one shows up, you've still lost in the end. In this stage, you can basically see how important this meeting is actually for that prospect and whether you were able to make him excited enough to actually show up to the meeting in the end. And some dialers also have a lightweight built-in CRM. But if you want to take it to the next level and track it in a dedicated CRM, you can also use something like Breakhold, Etio, or HubSpot. Great, by now you have built your list, you've set up your environment, and you also choose the right dialer. And now we're going to talk about what you're actually going to say. What's good to know is that the average cold call takes around 93 seconds. So this means that every single second counts, because in the end, you are basically interrupting someone's day. So you really need to make sure that everything that you say is actually on point. So let's start with the opener. So what you're going to say as soon as the person picks up. And when I first started making cold calls, I always thought the hardest part is actually explaining to the people what I am selling. But in fact, most cold calls don't even make it that far. Most of them actually fail already at the opener, because this is where the prospect is deciding whether it's worth listening to you or just basically thinking this is another annoying cold caller and I'm going to hang up the phone on him right now. Another interesting learning I got regarding the opener is that it doesn't only matter what you say, but also how you say it. So if you say it in a very fake, annoyed, or also very salesy way, it most likely won't even work. But if you come across calm, confident, and also human, you already are a big step ahead of a lot of other cold callers who are just reading down a script and sounding annoyed. One example for an opener, which is quite frequently used, but where I'm personally not the biggest fan of, is saying something, "You're going to hate me, but this is a cold call." The reason why I don't like it is because it signals very low confidence, and it also seems like a bad sales trick, basically. However, there are many other very effective cold calling openers, so you don't need to come up with your own structure. My favorite one is definitely the personalized permission opener. It works by disarming your prospect with transparency and also with relevancy. And here is exactly how it works. The first thing is that you start off with a personalized insight about that company or that person that is relevant to your own offer. This is something you can find out through, for example, the ChatGPT prompt that I showed earlier, or through LinkedIn, for example, the postings that they did. The second step that helps you to be transparent is that acknowledging that this is a cold call. This basically builds instant credibility and also prevents you from pretending someone that you are not. And then step 3 is to ask for permission in a very low pressure way, whether you can share the reason why you're cold calling in the first place. Let me show you how this could look like in practice. Let's imagine you're calling a head of people at a fast-growing tech company in the United Kingdom. This is how you could open it, saying, "Hey Alex, here is Roman. I just saw on your careers page that you posted 3 new jobs. It looks like things are growing fast for you guys. I'll be upfront. This is a cold call, but I did a bit of homework. Do you mind if I take 30 seconds of your time to explain you why that hiring activity made me think that this call is actually relevant to you? And if not, you can immediately hang up on me and I will never call you again." And that's it. It's basically as simple as that. And the psychology behind it is actually quite simple. You have shown that you've done some research, personalized to that person. You also are upfront that this is a cold call, and you also only ask for 30 seconds of their time. And this combination basically makes people want to listen most likely. And after you've opened the call and the person hasn't hung up on you, that's already a great achievement. And now it's all about doing your best to make that person stay and ultimately book the meeting. And the best way to do so is to create a feeling of urgency and also trigger a pain point that this person needs to have solved right now. So during the call, it's very important that you don't just copy the wording of your marketing department. And you shouldn't throw around all of these buzzwords, for example, AI, revenue excellence, or data orchestration. So by triggering an actual pain point, you want to make the person go from slightly annoyed or indifferent to really excited to hear about what you have to say. So after you have triggered that problem and also made the prospect aware that you can help with that, you should now softly validate whether the person is willing to hear more about that. Let me show you now how this could sound in practice. And let's go back to the example with the head of people. Most HR leaders say it's painful how much time their teams lose manually screening resumes of applicants that don't even match with the role. We work with growth stage companies to automate the first round of resume screening, cutting the time to hire in half. Would you be open to learning more about this, or would you say this is completely irrelevant to you? Great. From that point on, the conversation usually flows quite naturally. However, there are a couple of extra points you should keep in mind during the call to make sure that the person is actually sticking with you. The first one is that the tonality is everything. So basically, how you say it and how you deliver the things that you say. It's about the pitch, it's about your pace, and also the pauses that you do, which can be quite powerful, because most people, including myself when I started out, every time when there was silence, I tried to fill the gap. But actually, silence can also be quite productive and also quite advantageous for you in the end. And also, when you ask questions, you should also front load them with authority. So instead of just asking lazy questions such as, so what are you doing to solve this specific problem? Start off the questions in a way that show that you are talking to a lot of other people that have the specific problem that the person is most likely facing as well. So just like with the example that we did before, so saying most head of people at growth stage companies that I am talking to have this specific problem. How are you solving that? And one thing, no matter how good you are, which will always come up, are objections. And they're not a sign that you failed, they are just a part of the cold calling game. And when they come up on a cold call, most people start to panic. Either they get offensive themselves, or they are begging for the prospect's time. Both reactions are killing the conversation and are also putting the prospects on defensive. What you actually want to do is redirect the energy, and I will show you exactly how you can do that. Think about, for example, how Mr. Miyagi in the movie Karate Kid actually never blocks a punch head on, but he always redirects it. He's basically just guiding it somewhere else, and this is exactly how you should also handle the objections. Here's a simple way to think about it, and a 3-step approach that most of the times helped me to deal with these objections. The first and also most important step is that you actually take out the heat. So the first words that you're saying after this objection should actually lower the temperature and not raise it. You should agree with them and also show that you get why they're bringing up this objection. For example, if the person is saying we're already using XY, you can say, totally fair, many people that I'm reaching out to already have something in place as well. And with that, you're basically just showing that you're not here to fight and you don't want to aggressively pitch what you have to offer. And once the temperature is decreased already and they relax a little, you want them to open up. And the easiest way to do so is to give them a question with simple choices so they don't have to think too hard about it. So you could say, out of curiosity, if you're saying you're not interested, is it because you're already happy with what you have in place, or is it just not on your radar right now? And this gives you this very valuable insight without putting them on the defensive. And if they, for example, then say, I'm just not interested right now, we are very happy with what we have in place, you're then going to offer them a way to be informed for later. So you could say, look, you might not be changing anything right now, but it's always possible that priorities shift, and if it comes up, you already know the options that you have. And this way, you're not pressuring them, you're basically just giving them something useful with no strings attached. Great, so let's now say you've done everything right to this point, you opened the meeting well, you also handled the objections well, and now it's about booking, or rather like closing the meeting in this cold call. And this is the moment where a lot of cold callers mess up, because either they are just talking too long to the prospect, or they just ask for a meeting in a very low confident and also hesitant way. But what you want to do is you want to close this meeting decisively with confidence. So what you could say, for example, is that's exactly why we should meet. How about tomorrow or Friday between 2 to 4 p.m.? Because with that, you're not leaving it open-ended, but you're giving them 2 different days and times to choose from. And this often makes it easy for them to commit on the spot. And to gather more information and make the meeting ultimately as effective as possible, you should ask additional questions. For example, who else should be included on the call? Or you could also ask, is there anything that I should prepare to make the call as useful as possible for you? And before you hang up, always make sure to confirm their email and also send the calendar invite during the call so they can also confirm it and you don't run the risk of getting buried or forgotten. That's basically how you close the loop and turn a cold call into a booked meeting with a prospect that is actually excited to talk to you. And of course, no matter how good your numbers are or your script, sometimes the person just doesn't pick up the phone. But that's just a part of the cold calling game. So the question is, how often should you actually call a prospect before moving on? And this is where the 3-call rule comes in, because the diminishing returns on doing a lot of different attempts are very big. The data shows that 93% of the actual conversations happen after the third attempt and 98% after the fifth attempt. And after that, you're usually wasting time. So I would recommend you to keep it to 3 to 5 attempts before moving on. In this video, I gave you about everything to effectively cold call and also generate meetings and ultimately customers for your business. But with how rapidly AI is advancing, you're now able to create AI cold callers for your own business. And this is only getting better and more realistic as time goes on. So if you click on this video, I will show you exactly step by step on how to build such an AI cold calling agent. This will allow you to generate leads on autopilot for your business. I see you over there.